Hi guys, welcome back to another episode. I'm so fucking excited. I feel like this has been forever in the making with us, but I wanted to do it in person because I feel like, I don't know, I just feel like we get each other's energies better.
Yeah, it's better.
Welcome, Bran, to the show. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. Oh my God, you're in New York for 48 hours?
I'm in New York for 48 hours. What else is new? I come for 48 hours and leave.
Honestly, that's kind of the dream. Like,
yeah.
I'm a New York City girl. Like, I love New York, but sometimes I'm like, New York, I love to visit. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, I feel like that's how you are, but I actually live here and I'm like, I love to visit New York.
I love to visit. I get my fix and I'm like, okay, good for 3 months.
Ready to go home.
Yep.
So I always start the pod asking an icebreaker question that I think people don't usually get asked, but I feel like you'll have a really good answer.
Okay.
So the question is, what is your fatal flaw? And this can be anything. And bonus points if you've resigned to the fact that you do not want to like improve upon this thing.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's really tough. Probably like I feel like I need validation sometimes through like everything I do. Like I always am like looking for approval and like constantly am trying to work on growing as I grow up, like finding that approval within myself. Yeah. But haven't mastered that yet. Yeah. So that's a fatal flaw that I think like leads into a few different other fatal flaws.
Yeah, because it like opens doors to
I compare myself to people. Like I'm hard on myself. Yeah. I'm in my head, I get bad imposter syndrome. So I would say the overarching fatal flaw is like not feeling fulfilled within myself and like needing validation. Yeah.
So would you say your love language then is words of affirmation?
So that's my love language. I definitely do use words of affirmation and I'm very physical touch.
Okay. So do you like to get physical touch or do you want to give it?
I love
or both.
Both, but I would love if a partner gave me words of affirmation.
Okay. Like if somebody was like actively, I'm the same way, but I have this thought and like I need to hear your thoughts on this, but like personally, I think like we all want all of the love languages.
Yeah, we do.
Like nobody doesn't want, like there are people that don't like PDA, so maybe physical touch isn't like your favorite, but like in private, you want to be affectionately touched. And then like obviously everyone wants quality time. Obviously everyone wants their partner to like tell them nice things. Like everybody wants their partner to do acts of service. And like people are lying if they don't want gifts. Like I feel like all the love languages are like kind of,
they're all great. Yeah. Like how can you choose
how could you not?
Yeah.
What about your boyfriend? Does he have a certain love language that he likes you to give him?
He hasn't like explicitly said, but like I'm definitely very PDA and like I think he low-key likes that. I think he likes that like I'm a little touchy.
I think that you guys should take the quiz because honestly,
I think we should too.
It's so helpful. Like if you just feel like, not that you guys have this, but like when you reach like some sort of a weird stalemate and you don't know like how somebody wants to be comforted or something, like even friends, like finding out what their love language is so helpful, like psychologically to be like, okay, now I know how like when you're feeling sad or like when you need me, like how you want me to show up for you. Yeah,
he definitely is a little bit like acts of service, like likes to like do things for me, that's like cute. All that stuff, loves to like plan romantic dates, cook, like that's definitely his way of showing
He
love.
Also might be quality time then.
Yeah, he definitely, we spend a lot of time together.
I love it.
But so much to the point where I like get anxious when I'm like, wait, I haven't seen you in like 48
I haven't seen you in so long.
And he's like, relax.
He's like, calm down. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how we met because I feel like people don't know this. Like we've known each other for almost a year. And I feel like it was before, I feel like I knew, it was like my first brand trip.
Yeah,
and
same.
Yours. And I feel like I didn't know a ton of other influencers at this time. Like a year ago.
Nobody.
A year ago, I wasn't like, I didn't have as many friends in the space as I did now, but we met on a brand trip, South by Southwest with Prime Video.
Yes. And I have a funny story. So I got on this brand trip, like I had like a network connection. I knew someone who worked for the company and she was like, you'd be really perfect for this trip I'm planning. So she invited me and I knew nobody either. Like I was a smaller creator. I was probably the smallest creator that was on the trip platform wise at that time, like in terms of like followers and stuff. So I asked her.
And you had your full-time job.
Yeah. And I had my full-time job. I was still working. Influencing was a side hustle. So I asked her, I was like, when you get a list of people that are going, can you please send them over? So she sends over this list and I am like hoping that it's like all these people that I know and I didn't know anybody, but I'm an extrovert by nature. So I was like, I'm going to find the person on this list that I feel like looks like I would vibe with. Yeah. And I'm going to send them a DM. I DM Eli on a whim. I see she has like 50,000 followers. I'm like, oh, she's never going to see this. Nope. She answers me in 2 seconds.
I saw it right away.
Gives me her phone number. And that, like, here's insider tea. Like, when someone gives you their phone number in, like, the content creation space, that means, like, they genuinely, like, want to talk to you. Like, they want to take it out of the DMs.
Right. It's kind of weird. Like, there's like, a lot of people that wouldn't.
Yeah, it's almost like with dating when you get like a certain sign, you're like, oh, they're into me. With content creation, if someone like gets you out of their DMs, like follow back is like a basic first step. It's like, no, here's my phone number. Text me. They're genuine. So when Eli sent me her phone number, she was like, we're doing this tomorrow. Come with me to this. Come with me to this. And I was like, I felt such a weight lifted off my shoulder because I was so anxious about going on this trip. And I was like, oh my God, this is someone who's like already welcoming me with open arms and she like wants to hang out. Also, thank God we had each other because like, the trip, like, obviously was amazing, but there was, like, weather concerns. So, like, the activations that we had to go to, like, things got upended. And I feel like there was a lot of anxiety. Like, I feel like we were both dealing with, like, separate anxieties from things. Yes. And it was just good to have each other. No, it was great. We love South by Southwest. We stayed friends since. You're the reason I'm friends with, like, Carly, Jazz, and Hallie. Like, you introduced me, like, digitally to all of those people. Yeah. Yeah. I love them. It's so much fun. I love the space. Honestly, it's great. So, you started out in fashion. You were working fashion, corporate fashion, retail you've worked. Yes. So you're a fashion boy. I'm kind of curious, like, what it's like to be in the fashion space as a man or just in general in this industry because I like fashion, love shopping, love clothes, but I don't like typically say like, oh, I'm a fashion creator or like that's one of my main things. So I'm curious, especially from your unique perspective where you're not like a New York City fashion TikToker, what it's like. So that was the funny thing. Like, I felt like working in the fashion industry, it's very similar to working in this space because like influencing is like huge women, like it's women dominated industry. Yeah. Like people who buy products from influencers are typically women. Like people who do influencing are typically women. So that part really prepared me. But when I started making content, I was still working in that job. So my content, I didn't want it to be about fashion. I was like, I'm literally looking at clothes all day, like buying clothes, all this stuff. Yeah. I want to just make content about my fun personal life. And now like a year later, because I don't work for that company anymore, I haven't worked for almost 2 years in fashion. I'm like, oh, I kind of miss it. So recently I've been trying to like get back into making like fashion content, but it's very hard when my niche is already very established around like going out, being in your 20s, being chaotic, all this stuff. And it's like, no one really wants, like no one really cares about my fashion shit. Yeah. But I feel like I need to do more videos like talking about like actually working in the industry. Yeah. And I think that would offer like a different perspective. Yeah. I have like 2 things to say. So the first one is someone told me this. I actually think Girl Boss Town told me that Heidi D'Amelio told her this. Imagine that you are a glass of water and your followers are drinking the glass of water and it's just like plain water, like New York City tap. It's really good water. And the water in the glass is like your original content, the content they came for. And they're drinking it because they like it. Now imagine as you're like growing your following, you have a little bottle of red food dye. And every so often you put 1 drop of red food dye into the glass of water. 1 drop of red food dye isn't going to change the color of water to the point where people aren't still drinking it. So they're drinking it and they don't even know that you're making it slowly darker and darker and darker. And the drops are like other things, like fashion content or like, I don't know, let's just say you want to start a book club, like book talk or like whatever it would be. Let's just say you wanted to like experiment with a makeup look, like then you're on beauty talk. Like, sure, it's not your original content, but eventually they've all come for you. So they're just drinking the water when it's completely red all the way through. Mm-hmm. I thought that was a really good analogy. So that's very true. Number 1. And then number 2 is I think that's something that people don't realize about you that like I think is really prevalent for me is that we are complete opposites in terms of like going out and stuff. Like I don't go out. I don't remember the last time I did, like hardly ever. Like I have had party girl faces in the past. It's just like not my thing anymore, but we're still like really, really close, genuine friends. And like, we do have fun when we're together and like, we do have a great time. And it just shows me that you're much more than the niche a lot of people have pushed you into. Yeah. Because like you can be really great friends with somebody like me who like doesn't really go out and doesn't really drink a lot. 100%. And like, I can be really good friends with you, even though we have such different ideas of like a fun night out. Yeah. But it's because like that's not who you are. Like it's something that you like and like of life preference, but it's not all of you. Yeah, 100%. I could be friends with someone who's like, I have friends who are sober. I could be friends with like a mom that literally just doesn't do anything on the weekends, but like hang out with her kids. Like if I enjoy like spending time with you in one setting, doesn't mean I have to enjoy spending time in every single setting, but it's like some friends you like to go out to dinner with. That's like that. Some friends you like to just like have like, you want to just watch a movie. Some friends you want to party with, but the people that you party with might not be the first person you text when you're going through a hard time.
Exactly.
So I think different friends can serve different purposes. I think your true besties, you could kind of make a good situation with out of whatever.
Anything, yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. So I kind of also wanted to talk, like, thinking about fashion and like your space in that. I kind of want to talk about body image because I've noticed that you talk about it a lot, and I don't think that we give men a space to talk about body image or like really think about it critically. Like, I think we're getting to a place now that we do a little bit with like the gym bro, like toxic diet culture, and like people being like this whole like chicken and rice, like weighing my food, like macro, whatever, like is as a form of an eating disorder. But that's kind of separate from just like letting men talk about their bodies and like their struggles with their bodies. And I know you talked about it before, so I was curious if you could like speak to that.
Yeah, I think, you know, I've related to like a lot of people. Like, one of my favorite creators is Remy Bader, of course, and I've always loved her content, and she made me feel like very comfortable and like even just trying on clothes and like showing my whole body in a video, because I first started out literally just with like green screen showing like the top of my face, because I was always like, the reason I was scared to get into content, I was like, people are going to come for like the way I look. And that happens now. But for me, it's funny that those comments actually like kind of bother me the least.
Yeah.
And the comments that like really bother me are like when people comment on like your personality and they don't know you.
Yeah.
That stuff gets under my skin. I'm like, okay, call me fat. You could have called me fat in 4th grade. Like, I've been dealing with that since I was a little kid.
Also, it's like not a bad word. Like, get a better insult, please.
So it definitely is hard because traditionally I feel like not a lot of men open up and talk about it. And especially in like the gay space, like my own internalized homophobia and my own insecurities have led me to believe that like a gay guy needs to look a very certain way. Like, he needs to have a 6-pack. He needs to, you know, want to wear a jock strap and like go to these parties and like do all this stuff. And I never felt that image. I never like felt like I resonated with that. I was actually on a podcast yesterday and I said the first time in media culture that I felt like I saw a gay guy that kind of represented something like me was Damien from Mean Girls. And I was like, oh, I could look like that and still be gay, because I was being pushed the narrative of Christian from Clueless and the hot muscular guys from Bring It On who were gay cheerleaders. And I was like, oh, this is what gay looks like. You have to be gorgeous. And like, I would see on Sex and the City, like, oh, why are gay guys always the hot ones and all this stuff? And I was like, I don't feel hot. Like, am I bad at being gay because my body like image doesn't really like fit the narrative that I'm being shown in the media?
Yeah, that's so interesting. There's a TED Talk by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, who is a really incredible author and theorist, I would say. It's called like There's No Such Thing as a Single Story. I botched that, but it's about how there's no single story. Like, there's no one way to be gay. There's no one story about being Black. There's no one story about being an immigrant. There's no one story about, you know, growing up in poverty. Like, there's no one way to be anything. It's a really beautiful TED Talk that I really recommend. But that really triggered that thought for me. Like, there's no one way to do this, but sometimes we only show one story in the media to the point where people start believing that there's only one way to do it.
Yeah. 100%.
And it's really sad. And I think you've done a really good job though of coming into yourself and learning to feel hot. What has that been like?
Well, I think I think when I went to college and I found a sense of like confidence there that like I wasn't able to find in high school. Like, I just found a sense of acceptance that I never had when I was growing up. And I just learned to like be myself. And I was just like, I truly believe that the sexiest person in the room is always the person who's the most confident. Because it's like, if you walk up to someone who is so physically beautiful and attractive, but they're, let's say, rude to you, that's not sexy. Like, you're not going to be attracted to that person, maybe physically, but like, you're not going to want to go back and hang out with that person. But if you have like a great aura and a great energy, people are going to want to continue to be around you. It's like, people always wonder like all the time, like, oh, like I always see someone who isn't as physically as attractive, but they pull all these people. It's like, sometimes the personality really does make up for that. Like, you don't have to look a certain way. Like, if you are just like a great person to share energy with and be in the same environment with, like, people are going to want to be around you. So once I found that confidence, I kind of just realized, oh, like no one really gives a shit deep down, like what you look like. They just like want to be around you if you're a good vibe. Like, and on the inverse, like you can be as hot as you want. People are not going to want to spend time with you if you're miserable and like not a good vibe, like negative aura.
Yeah. I always say we attract what we are.
Yeah.
Like we're like magnets. And so like people are like, why does no one want to come home with me when I'm at the bar? And I'm like, if you go to the bar and you are not looking around, like looking for someone to go home with, and instead you're like, ordering shots with your friends, going up to the DJ booth, requesting songs, laughing, smiling, dancing, being in your own moment, you are going to attract all these people like magnets, because people are like, that person's fun. I feel like I'm fun, like a magnet. I feel like it's so true. And people will beat themselves up like, why don't I get attention at the bar? I'm like, think about how you were behaving. And I'm not saying that people who are shy don't deserve, like, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying, like, if you were behaving in a way that seemed like you weren't secure or not having a good time, you're not going to attract people who do feel secure and are having a good time, even if you were having a good time. So just be intentional, because like we attract what we are. Yeah.
We can't perform to our best capability if we're mainly in our head.
Yeah.
And when you go into a mindset like a bar and you're mainly in your head, like, why aren't people coming up to me? Why aren't this? Like, because your focus isn't on the right things. Your focus should be on having fun.
Yeah.
And the rest of all of that will come naturally.
It will happen. I love that. So kind of in the same vein, I wanted to talk about like, I hate this word, but like bullying, but more specifically like adult bullies, because I feel like a lot of people ask me this, and I haven't really like spoken to it yet, but like adult bullies in the workplace, like when you have a corporate job and like someone's really, really mean to you, and like adult bullies just like in the content space and just like in general cyberbullying, and like also like if you were bullied as a kid, which like you've discussed before that you were, kind of like what has that journey been like? Because I feel like adult bullies are like so much worse than like kid bullies.
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, when I was growing up, like bullying was very like, it kind of was like how you see it on TV. Like just like, oh, you're gay, blah, 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 blah. Like, and then as I grew up, it kind of like just like fizzled into just like, you know, you can get bullied by your friends sometimes. And like people can take advantage of your kindness, and they can, you know, do things and treat you in a way where you're like, wait, why are you like treating me like that? And 100%, I feel like a lot of bullying can come from like very toxic competitiveness, like where people who they're very selfish people tend to not be happy for you when you're successful, because your success isn't helping their success in some ways. So it's like they compare themselves to you, and then they start pushing you down because you're almost like a threat to them in some eyes. And like that's really tough to deal with. And like when you're growing up and you're like realize the people who like weren't bullying you, like they were your friend when you were growing up, they weren't being outwardly mean to you, but they're treating you, they were almost like gaslighting you. Like they weren't outwardly bullying you, but then when you grew up, they started like treating you badly. And then you're like, wait, you're like a different kind of bully. Like you're kind of toxic. So that's been very, very interesting. I think everyone deals with that. I mean, in general, like human beings, we have flaws. We suck sometimes. In some ways, everyone is an asshole. It's true. It's true. Someone commented that on my TikTok the other day, because I was talking about, you know, all the talk right now in the influencer culture space. And I was just like, you guys, I'm not saying that what this person's saying in this video isn't valid, but I'm telling you from someone who worked in corporate, this happens anywhere. If we become obsessed with making influencer culture out to be a certain stereotype, no influencers are going to benefit from that. We're all just giving ourselves a bad stereotype to attach to our name, when we're not doing anything different than unfortunately any real life human is doing, because influencers are just as normal as any other people. We just live our life on the internet. So that becomes difficult because we make everything that we do subject to approval or disapproval. Yeah.
I wanted to talk a little bit about that stuff because I've been like seeing them, and I want to talk about your take. I was saying yesterday, like I would say like 95 to almost 99% of people that I meet are really, really, really nice.
Yeah.
And then like the 2 to 5% that haven't been nice to me, I feel like I would never like reveal their names or even talk about it, because like one, people have bad days, and two, I would never, even if somebody was really mean to me or rude or off-putting, I would never root for somebody else's demise or failure. Yeah. I just think it's bad vibes.
It's bad karma.
It's bad karma. And I see people on the internet, especially with women, really eager to root for their demise and like excited about it almost. And it's like, when in the history of the world did we get like so excited about other people failing?
Yeah, that's my thing. Like, people will ask, like, I did that video once where I was like, literally trying to be positive. I was like, here's some nice influencers that I've met. And the top comment was, okay, now do a video of the worst. I'm like, no, because that's not going to bring me good karma.
It's not good energy.
And you have to put yourself in the shoes. Imagine if you opened the TikTok app and someone did a video on the worst influencers and they included you. You would feel so anxious, so shitty. You would see so many comments piling on you. As anybody in this space, I would never wish that feeling on anybody.
No.
Because we've all gone through it. So it's like almost more fucked up when you see other people in the space perpetuating it, because it's like, you know what it feels like. You've been here before.
Yeah.
Why are you going to contribute that? So I would never do that. And even with smaller stuff, like people will be like, oh, can you do like the worst places to like go out in Philly? And I'm like, no, because those are businesses. And I don't want to give I would rather use my platform to give someone a praise that they deserve than give someone like, you know, negative feedback that's not necessary. Now, if someone's doing something like extremely shitty, like prejudice, bigotry, different story. But like in general, if I don't like somebody on a personal level, or I don't like a certain restaurant or bar, I'm not going to go slander it on the internet, because it's not good vibes.
I also think there's a general lack of nuance on TikTok and a lack of their ability to have gray space. I always say this, but two things can be true at once. Whoever was rude to the person who made the video should have been kind.
Yes.
That's period, end of story. We should all strive to be kind to everyone around us. Otherwise, it's a shit show. Like, everyone should be kind. She should have been kind, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But the second thing can be true, that she is a nice person that had a bad moment or fucked up and was rude or was inconsiderate or was having a terrible day. Like, you only know 5% of what someone's going through. So I'm not making excuses for someone being rude, but I think two things can be true at once. Yeah. Where like, this person should have been nice and we should give them the benefit of the doubt. Now, if there's somebody who's like all over the internet and everyone's like, they're horrible and they're racist and all these things, like, yeah, of course they don't deserve, two things can be true and they don't deserve nuance. I just think everything has a bit of gray space, and it's really difficult on TikTok that people don't allow for gray space.
Yeah.
And yeah, that just really
my take with it is just like, if the video had been like, hey, I've been noticing this at influencers event that we're all like almost a little bit comes across competitive and condescending. I hope that all of us as influencers, like if you're seeing this, can make a change to be like more welcoming. It's okay to ask an influencer, instead of who are you signed to, where are you from? What are you doing this weekend? Who did you bring as your guest? Like, are you dating anybody right now?
Yeah.
I think that would have been an okay video, but to like make it as like so like cut and dry that like influencers are this, that, and I'm not going to call out any names, but it's like.
But then people start immediately speculating.
People start speculating, and you know that people are going to speculate, especially when you make the caption, I'm not mentioning any. I wish I could say names. It's like. Also,
just like from personal experience with the Susan Alexandra bag thing, I don't know if you remember, but like. Basically, a girl made a video, and I'm not shaming the girl who made the video at all. I'm shaming the people in the comments. She made a video saying that she lives in the same building as an influencer.
Oh, yeah.
And she said that the influencer is very, very beautiful and in the fashion space, which my haters would never say I was very, very beautiful or in the fashion space. She said that, and she went on to say that the influencer continuously throws away PR, which is like incredibly wasteful and horrible, and threw away this Susan Alexandra beaded bag. Now, I was currently in contract with Supergoop, so I was one of the few people that got the bag early, because the PR packages went out first to people in contract with them, and then people just on their PR list. And I had posted about it because I was incredibly excited, and then I went to LA and left it at home. And I, again, no hate to the woman who made the video. I think it's really great that she made the video. But the problem was the spec, and she said, I'm not naming names, like she did it on purpose for security reasons.
Yeah.
And I do not support throwing out PR. I think that's awful, and I've never done it. But all the comments were blaming me and like coming for me, and it was like a really terrible day. Like to be on the app. Like people were so excited that they thought it was me. And then like I had to get someone to like take a picture of it at home, but then people were like, we need to see the newspaper next to it so we know that picture was taken today. Like just not believing me. It was so discouraging. I would never do that. I was so excited to have received the bag. And like the speculation, like it really like sure, the person that did that, should they be held accountable? Absolutely. It's really not good what they did. And I hope they saw that video and never did it again. And I'm sure they did. But the fact that I was getting eaten alive over something I simply didn't and would never do was so shit. And I'm sure that in the same way that Dumois blind and people are speculating who it is, like whoever it isn't who's getting all this hate and speculation, like it's shitty.
Yeah, it's very shitty. And it just like, that's what I'm saying. It's like, if your goal is to improve the space, and I know this sounds like such a crazy concept where we live online, why don't you just tell the person who's making you uncomfortable, like, hey, you're kind of being rude, or DM them the next day and be like, hey, I met you last night. I'm not sure if you meant to do this, but you kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And I bet that would go a lot further in that person's mind because they got an individual DM, and people are probably like, oh, well, they'll never see it. We see it.
Yeah.
We see it. We see it. Trust me. But like no one wants to do that because what's the fun in that? What's the fun in that? You know, when you're looking at it from, I want to start like some spice on the internet, you keep that shit private.
Yeah.
But maybe keeping that shit private is what's going to help the situation more.
Yeah. I think it's like really double-edged sword. Cause again, I do believe in accountability, like 100,000%. And like, the person throwing out PR is a perfect example. They should be held accountable. But like just to attack people that you think it could be is so like shitty. And I feel like it's the same with this situation. Like I see people getting attacked who simply weren't even at that party.
They weren't even at the event.
Yeah. People were asking me if I was there. Like I didn't go. I mentioned I might go and then I decided not to. And I'm like, people are like so hungry for this like drama.
But what I said, and it's like, this is kind of the last thing I want to say about this, but I feel like it's going to push people to be more buttoned up and not even talk because it's like, what? Now it's like, okay, anything I say might be misconstrued or might be mistaken. And then it's like, maybe now people are just going to be quiet. You know, you see celebrities who literally refuse to do interviews because like they'll say something and it will get taken out of context and make a headline.
Oh, yeah.
And then their solution is, I'm just not doing any interviews anymore. Like we kind of push people to breaking points to the point where the only solution is I'm just not talking anymore. I'm going to go show my face, shake hands with the people who invited me, say thank you and leave. And that might sound really rude, but for some people that's just them protecting their peace because they feel like they can't win in another environment.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, moving on from that, I meant to ask you that later, but you brought it up. So I was like, it's time to talk about it. Kind of in the vein of like adult bullies, I want to talk about adult friendship because I've been thinking a lot about this, and my friend group and my friends have been talking a lot about the way that like sometimes we don't see each other for a month because like the structures that formally held up our friendships, like groups and clubs and all these things, like they don't exist.
Yeah.
How do you, because you have your girlies and those are like your tight group, but you have a lot of friends. And honestly, friends, like I feel like you and I keep up, like we don't see each other all the time, but we really keep up with each other. We do a great job. How, like, what are some of your tactics? Because I feel like you do great at like preserving and like kind of like moving along your adult friendships. Yeah.
So I think you have your friends that like you can see frequently, and those are people, they geographically live close to you.
Yes.
They are in the same like a friend group in a sense where like they're going to be going to the same birthday parties as you. Like you don't necessarily need to text them and make one-on-one plans because you're going to see them in some capacity soon. So those are people that are very easy to keep up with, and sometimes they're usually your best friends. That's how my girlies are. I live with one of them.
Yeah.
So I'm always seeing them. And then you have your friends that maybe they don't live as close. And I think like sending a text anytime like a major event happens, a birthday for someone like you, like when you have a huge accomplishment, or maybe on the opposite, like when you're going through a rough time, like checking in.
Yeah.
I always say, and this is something I've been trying to do, I actually want to make a video about it. I think every week, especially in the winter when everyone has like a little bit of seasonal depression, like try to FaceTime a friend that you haven't talked to in a while. Be like, hey, I haven't talked to you in a while. Maybe we live 3 states apart, so we can't necessarily go get drinks this week, but let's have like just an hour FaceTime when you can. And you just catch up on work. I do this, and sometimes the FaceTime will be 2 hours, and I feel so refreshed after because I'm like, that was so nice. Like, even though I don't really get to physically see you, like it's so nice to just catch up.
Yeah.
So I think it all depends. But then there's people like, I have my one childhood best friend. I only see her every few months and we don't text, but it's so nice because then when I do see her, we can't shut up because we have to catch up on work, friends, drama, relationship, every single thing. And it's really nice. There's some people who are like a little bit more anxious than others. So I feel like when they feel like they're not hearing from you, like they get in their head and you're like, are we not friends anymore? You don't reach out. I think you have to get close to someone to know like when it's personal and when it's not.
Yeah.
Like I would never be anxious if I hadn't heard from you in 2 months because I'm like, it's Eli. She's busy.
Like
she's doing shit. Like whatever. But I know if I texted you and I was like, hey, I need to talk to you about something, you're all ears. Like you're always like that. Yeah.
I think that's a really good point. Like just setting aside the time to like connect with people that you don't get to see as much.
Yeah.
And like even we don't even realize it, like you have an hour train ride or like you're on a walk one day, like just give them a call. And like even if they can't pick up, seeing that you called them and then being like, I'll call you back when I get a shot. Like it's just, I feel like a lot different in adult vibes to like make and maintain friendships, but the friendships are even better when you do.
I totally agree. I have such a like great group of friends and I really appreciate that. And I'm very blessed because I'm an extrovert by nature. And I feel like the more and more I meet people, everyone's very introverted. And I'm like, no, I'm a true extrovert. Like I always want to talk. Like I want to make new friends. And that's something that I think has been interesting. Like recently people have been very transparent with me. They're like, I'm not looking for more friends. Like I have enough friends as it is. I don't like, I can't see myself in a world where I don't want more friends. Like I always want new friends. Like I always want new perspective. I always want to hang out with new people and because I think if you hang out with the same group, your brain becomes kind of stagnant. Like you start only thinking certain ways. It's like when you have conversations with different people, you have different ideas. And especially when you're in the content creation space and you can get like writer's block in a sense where like, I don't know what to make content about. And then you hang out with a new person who says something that one of your regular friends that you see every weekend would never say. You're like, wait, that's funny. There's people who think like that. I can make a video similarly and appeal to a different audience like that.
Yeah, I think that's really true. I also feel like sometimes it's the hardest part is getting to hanging out, like getting to the hangout. And then once you do, you'll feel really fulfilled. And worst case scenario, you don't want to see them again. Yeah. Like you wasted 2 hours and had some drinks. Like who cares? Who cares? So I want to talk about dating a little. I know we were like in our single era, like when I met you. Oh my God, yes. And now you're all cuffed up. And this is like your first serious
It's my
boyfriend.
First relationship. Okay, yeah. So first technical little like boyfriend title. Yeah.
So I think a lot of people have this concern that like they're behind if they have their first relationship in their like mid-late 20s. But I just think like it's so normal. It's so normal. Like realistic for that to happen. How has it been navigating your first romantic relationship?
Yeah, it's been like crazy because right before this relationship, I went through a bad situationship and I was like really, really hurt by that. Like I totally agree with people online who are like sometimes getting over a situationship is worse than getting over a relationship.
Yeah.
Like I was very much in like my insecure, trying to heal, but also trying to figure out like what the fuck, who was I in a sense. And I was 25, I'd never been in a relationship and I was losing hope. I was like, there's no way I'm ever going to find anybody. I live in Philly. It's a smaller gay scene. I've hooked up with pretty much everybody. I've tried to go on dates with everybody. When I go on the dating apps, I literally know who people are at this point. Like I'm done. Basically, like I was like, this is, I was like, this is going to be my life. I'm going to be single forever. So it was very crazy when like it happened and it happened very like fast, but not fast in a bad way. Like it was rushed. It was just like, it just made so much sense that there wasn't any like time for doubt because everything was just so certain that like it was moving fast because it was seamless. But it's so weird now being in this relationship because like my life has changed. You know, like I go out last night, I'm like, oh my God, like I don't need to look for guys or I don't need to like, you know, I'm just here. I'm hanging out. Like there was a sense like of like spontaneity. I forget that word. Spontaneity. When you're single and you like don't know how your night's gonna end. You're like, maybe I'll go home with someone tonight. Maybe I won't. Like maybe I'll end up in bed with pizza. Whereas now there's like, you usually know where the direction of your night is going in. So that's been like interesting to navigate. Yeah. And it's very weird to be in a sense like, oh my gosh, like this could be it. Like if this is my person, like I'm not gonna, you know, necessarily have another sexual interaction with anybody else ever again. And like, that's been weird because I was a whore, to be completely frank. So I was having fun. And now I'm like, oh my God, I'm like settled down. So it's weird because it's only been 6 months, but I'm like, I'm trying to process like how everything is like shifted so much.
I have two thoughts. So the first one is like to your point about like the spontaneity of going out and like that kind of like inner reworking of like the way things used to be. I think that there's, and I've said this so many times, I'm going to say it again, there's a major difference between a thought that, oh, is the grass greener, and doubting. Like I think people would freak out, but I don't know if I'm just really comfortable in my relationship, but like we've had conversations about that feeling of the grass being greener and then both deciding that we would much rather be on our plot of grass and water it to make it as green than go onto the grass that seems greener. Everybody has those thoughts. Like it is so normal to be like, is the grass greener? That's just like a normal, we need to fucking normalize that. And it's different than having doubts. Having doubts is like, I don't know if I like this person anymore. I feel like I would rather be single. It's not a passing thought like, wow, like being single was so different. I wonder if the grass is greener. Like the grass is always going to feel greener, but when you get to the grass, it actually isn't going to be greener.
100%.
So I think like that is so legit, like so normal. And I'm glad you said it because I think it'll make a lot of people feel like really heard. And the second thing is, to your point about how it just felt so sure and it moved really fast, like I always say this, but like I can't reiterate it enough. Like if somebody is making you feel confused or anxious, they're 100% not the person for you.
Yeah.
Like you're probably not going to date them. There is somebody else that's going to come into your life and you're never once going to be confused.
Questioning it.
You're never once going to be like, do they like me? You're never once going to be like, are they mad at me because they didn't? You will know.
Yeah.
And I feel like when they say if you know, that's what they really mean. Like you will just know that person cares about you, know they like you, and that's what you deserve.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying like, I hate to make blanket statements. Like a lot of people have like long ass talking stages or like, you know, friends to lovers, enemies to lovers tropes, and it takes forever. You know what I mean? Like the will they, won't they. But most of the time, it's like if you're feeling anxious and confused, that person's not right for you.
100%.
And I feel like that's definitely how you feel in situationships.
Yeah, it's situationships. It's like a toxic reward system of like, oh, they text me, like all of this. It's like all your own mind game that makes the person seem so much more appealing because they're preying on your own self-doubts. And it's fun. I'm not going to lie, like in a sick way. It's toxic. It's addicting.
Yeah.
And you get the dopamine rush when they give you that green light and they're like, they are texting you today. They do want to meet up with you later. But then it's the withdrawal when they pull away and then you doubt everything. And it's nothing comparable to just having someone who just loves you, honestly.
Yeah, I agree. Totally agree. So we're going to move into like some more fun vibes and questions. People really wanted me to ask you about Philly and like how you like living in Philly and if you would recommend people move there and kind of like what is it like to live there?
Yeah. So the thing about me, I'm a Leo, tried and true. And I have always used this phrase. I love it. I love being a big fish in a little pond. So for me, Philly makes a lot of sense because it doesn't have a huge content creation space. You know, it doesn't have a lot of creators. It doesn't have a necessary, like a huge influencer culture, as you guys on the internet love to say. There's not a huge influencer culture. So I kind of love being there because all my friends pretty much work full-time 9-to-5 jobs. They're very just average, you know, working class people. And I feel like that really helps keep me grounded because I'm like, if I was in this space 24/7, I think I would eat myself alive. Like, I think I would just like overthink things, like give into toxic things that weren't truly who I am. Like, I just don't see myself flourishing in that culture. That's why I like to visit and go to like LA for a few days at a time in New York to get that scene because it is important to have friends in this space for sure. It keeps you sane, but I couldn't do it all the time. But I love Philly for that reason. But I also grew up in Philly. I grew up in the suburbs, went to college in the city, moved to the city after. I love the food there. I love going out. Everyone is just like, no one really gives a fuck. Like everyone's just like, let's just vibe. Like it's not that serious. I'm not a sports person, but the sports culture is huge. The Eagles are in the Super Bowl right now.
Ow.
So it's just like a really like fun, chaotic like vibe. But I also feel like everyone has each other back. It's a city that leans liberal and I am a liberal. So I really enjoy that as well. But there is stuff to do and I love the location. Like we experience every season. We are so close to New York. We're so close to the Jersey Shore. Like there's a lot of things in the area that you can go and do, but it feels like home to me.
Yeah, I love that. I really like Philly.
Yeah.
The few times I've been, I've like really fucked with it.
Yeah.
I'm like a New York girl at heart, but also like New York does overwhelm me.
Yeah, it's like an underwhelming New York. It's like the streets are more narrow, they're smaller, but you can still get different things that you can get from New York in Philly.
Yeah, I love
for way
that.
cheaper rent.
For way cheaper rent. You heard it here first. So I always like to ask people what they say to their main critique that they get. So for example, when I had Tim Chusano, I don't know if you know him, he's like, day in the life, like this is point of view, you're 45 in New York or whatever. And he makes those like really lovely vlogs. I asked him about, you know, how do you take the criticism when people say that you're like romanticizing hustle culture and like overworking yourself. So my question for you is, what would you say to people that claim that you drink and party too much?
Yeah. So, I mean, I get that feedback a lot. Literally.
Kind of silly because you're just like a normal person.
I'm just,
like, you don't go out every day.
That's what people don't realize about the internet. So it's like, if I find a trending sound on a Wednesday and I put a drinking related caption, that doesn't mean I'm drunk on a Wednesday. It just means I'm basically participating in meme culture and using something relatable, like the point of my platform is to make people laugh.
Yeah.
I don't want people to go to bed worried about me. Like, please don't do that. Like
you're good.
I strive for being a comfort creator that is entertaining. I want people to go to my page and like get a giggle and get a little silly in when they're feeling anxious or even if they just are genuinely just want to be entertained. So I think we're really quick to judge people on the internet when it seems like someone is doing too much of something. And that's the issue. I don't necessarily think I drink way more or way less than another person. I just post about it way more.
Well, also you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. If you're not posting your party content, they're wondering why you're not partying.
Yes.
Because that's what they came for.
The first thing when I got in a relationship, people, before they even knew what my content was going to be, people were like, you're going to be boring now. You're not feral anymore. You're a grandpa now. You don't even go out anymore. Like, we used to love this page. I get that all the time. And then I had a comment today. Someone was like, babe, we're worried. I feel like you're always hungover. I could drink a glass of water and be hungover. I'm just unwell all the time.
Yeah, sorry, just consistently unwell over here.
Like, I literally will have one drink and I'll wake up and be pissed off, be like, I shouldn't have even had a drink. I feel hungover. Yeah. I'm just old at this point. But I'm just like, don't worry about me. I'm okay. Yeah. And not everything you see, like, I feel like 70% of most creators are totally authentic. And then there's 30% of them that's a little exaggerated. Like they, you know, in some senses you are playing a little bit of a character here and there. Yeah. And it's very you, but like sometimes you exaggerate things to, you know, get a better reaction. I'll be the first person to admit that. A lot of people will say, oh, that's phony, but it's like, no, that's actually real. Well, it's to like admit a caricature. It. Yeah, exactly. So it's hard to get those criticisms because like, I don't think alcoholism or addiction or anything like that is anything to joke about. It's not anything to glamorize by any means, but it's also like, if I was worried about somebody, even if I didn't know them, I'm not going to comment that on their video. Like I said earlier, I would send a text if I knew the person, or if I don't know the person, a DM just being like, hey, notice your content's been like really, really party focused. Sure, you're totally fine, but just wanted to check in, like, if you ever feel like you need to talk to somebody or blah, blah, blah. That I would appreciate. I would be like, wow, like that's really, like, I don't think that it's necessarily always in good intention to like comment on someone and be like, you need to go to rehab. Like, that's not really a phrase you should say to somebody. Like, yeah, because you don't know. Yeah, you don't know their situation. And like, in some ways, it's kind of adding a negative stigma to addiction, which is a very real thing. And it's like, that's not necessarily like the best way, in my opinion, not the best approach. It's the same thing as when people say, that's so gay. You have to ask, what are you connotating the word gay with? Yeah. Something negative. So that's why it's a big problem to do that. To be like, you need to go to rehab as an insult, because that's what it is unfair, because a lot of people, like, addiction is a very, very real struggle and disease. It's nothing to be taken lightly. And to say that as an insult connotates it really negatively. Yeah. And my thing is too, it's like, I think it becomes problematic and an issue, like if you're drinking to cope with something, like that's a red flag. I'm not saying it's necessarily a deal breaker, but like, it's like, okay, why are you doing that? If I'm feeling sad, I actually don't like to drink. Yeah. Sometimes I'll emotionally eat. Like, I'll be like, you know what? I'm feeling really down bad. I'm going to go get McDonald's. I want to just like, that's going to bring me some joy for a few minutes. Yeah. But I'm the type of person, I go out to have fun. Like I said, I'm a very extroverted person. I love being in a space where I'm with people and I can meet people. I love to dance. And for me, all of that is fun when I have a little bit of liquid courage in me. I could do that stuff sober. And I have done it sober. Yeah. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I had a great time doing it, because sometimes I get really annoyed by drunk people when I'm sober. And it's very hard to like be in that environment where like people are pushing you. Like when you're drunk, you're kind of part of it. So it doesn't bother you as much. But when you're dead sober, it's difficult. I'm not saying you can't go out sober. People do it all the time. And like I said, I've done it. But I do enjoy being under the influence of alcohol when I go out and party. But that's really all there is to it. I like to have fun. And I am definitely growing out of it a little bit. Like I'm 26 now. My hangovers last 1 or 2 days. I have a boyfriend now that I am content with spending a night in, like, rather than going out. But I'm always going to be a party girl. Yeah. I love to party.
She's Paris Hilton. And here's the thing, like, everyone has preferences, and as long as you're not harming yourself or others, like, no one can say shit about what you do. Like, my personal preference is, since I don't drink a lot anymore and I don't go out a lot, I do not like to go out sober. Yeah. So I'm not going to do it. That's my preference. I am not saying you can't have fun going out sober. If you like to do that, if you're sober and you go out, fuck yes. Cosign 100%. If you go out and you get drunk, cosign 100%. As long as you're not harming yourself or others, not judging yourself or others, and you feel really great about your choices, I'm applauding you. Yeah. If you are sober, if you like to drink, if you drink every once in a while, if you're sort of sober curious, like, wherever you are on your journey, first of all, I've been all of them. Like, I've gone no alcohol, sober curious, drank all the time in college. Like, I've been everywhere on the journey, and like, the people I love the most in my life are the people that respected and encouraged me wherever I was in my journey, even when they weren't on the same place. My like best friends, some of them love to go out every weekend. Yeah. And we don't go out together, and that hasn't affected our relationship at all, because we just respect each other.
And that's the hard part, because so during the pandemic, especially when we were locked down, I didn't really drink at all. And I was 23, like fresh out of college. So like for like 8-9 months, I barely went out. I really couldn't go out, but I really didn't do that. So when I first started blowing up on TikTok, it was when I was 24 years old, June 2021. Everything had just opened back up. The vaccine had just been distributed. Everyone was vaccinated. We were all thinking that like that time period was over. Like we were like, oh, everyone's fixed now. Slay. So I was partying. It was the first time I was living in my city, and I could actually go to the bars in my city and do stuff. So that was the most partying I've ever done. Like I was full, and it was the summer, and the summer is amazing. So it's like, I'll go out Thursday, I'll go out Friday, I'll go out Saturday, I'll go to the beach on the weekends, and I'll come back and do it again. But now I'm like, okay, it's cold. I've gone to this bar a million times. I've lived this night a million times. Yeah. It's not the same. But I know that there's people out there that still do enjoy my drinking content, and it's funny. And I still, to a degree, enjoy making that content. So I'll make it. Yeah. And that's about as deep as it gets.
It's exactly what it is. Like, we're all on a different journey, and like, people need to support you as you grow and change, especially again, if you're not harming yourself or anyone else. It's really not their business.
Yeah. It's funny. I was talking about it with Carly Weinstein today, and she was like, Bran, it's really funny. She's like, because now that I know you really well, she's like, you're probably one of the people I worry about the least. She was like, you're literally fine. Like, you have such a good head on your shoulders. Like, oh yeah, I understand that you post a lot about it. She's like, but anyone who actually knows you knows that you're one of the most level-headed, like, very well balanced people. And I appreciated that so much.
You would be like one of the people I would call if I got arrested, because I know that you would answer and come help me, and you wouldn't be like Leo drunk off your and even if you were, you would come help me. You know what I mean? Like, you're reliable and trustworthy and really smart. And I feel like you get conflated with this culture, but it's, again, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't.
You're damned. This girl posted a video about her bag. She was like, did you see this video? I forget her name, but it was a really great video. She was like, I bought this bag. And then she was like, you guys are going to tell me that I'm participating too much in consumer culture, but then I don't buy the bag and I'm not supporting businesses during a recession. Like, she twisted it. And the top comment was, moral of the story, post for yourself. If you become so consumed, and this becomes on social media and in life, if you become so consumed on worrying about people's reactions and doing things for other people, you are never going to fulfill yourself. Period. So do things for yourself, whether that's posting on social media, making the choices in your career, making choices in your friendship. I'm not saying be selfish all the time, but I'm saying sometimes you have to be in order to maintain your own mental health.
I totally agree. So kind of like fun fucking caveat from being like, you drink too much. What's your hangover food? So I want to swap our drunk foods of choice and our hungover foods of choice.
Okay, my drunk food of choice. I'm basic. I really just like pizza.
Okay, I was gonna say I like Domino's because they have a gluten-free crust, and I get it. My order is so weird. I get Domino's gluten-free crust, no sauce, just cheese, and pineapple.
Oh, that is weird. Well,
people hate me.
I'm just trashy. I love a Papa John's.
Oh, love a Papa John's.
When they come with that like garlic dipping sauce.
Oh, the garlic dipping sauce.
Oh my God.
Slaps.
Just a great way to upset your stomach.
Yeah.
But in the best way.
No, I would always feel so sick after the Domino's. Okay, hungover food of choice.
Okay, that could be very different depending, but I love a bacon, egg, and cheese for sure. Sometimes, you know, it's so funny when people are like, how can you eat a salad when you're hungover? But sometimes the Caesar salad just be hidden when you're hungover. Like that lettuce and those little chompy chomp with those croutons. Like sometimes you're like, this is good. This is fucking good. So you put some crispy chicken in it. That could hit. Mm-hmm. I'm
all about the acai bowl, and I feel like people feel the same way. Like, how could you eat that when you're hungover? I'm like, it's hydrating. It's fruit. You can put like peanut butter or Nutella, so you're getting protein and sugar. Then you have the granola for carbs. It's so refreshing. Like, I'm not like, oh, I need to be so healthy. Like, when I'm hungover, my hangovers manifest in nausea.
Yeah.
I don't get headaches. I get so nauseous. It's nausea for me, and something greasy is going to make me throw up, but something hydrating and sweet is going to feel really good. And then I'll do the greasy thing later.
Yeah.
Once I feel not nauseous anymore.
Yeah.
That's totally when I'll do like the sandwich or like whatever it is. Yeah. Chipotle. Okay. I love that. So now I want to ask you, what would be your ideal night out? And it could be anything. You get to choose. You're anywhere with whoever you want to be with. And you can start from like, where are we having dinner? Yeah.
So we talked about this yesterday. I don't think anticipated nights are fun. Like tomorrow's the Super Bowl. I'm not going to say I'm not going to have fun, but like high anticipated event where there's a lot of crowds, things are over expensive. I have the best nights when things are spontaneous. So say you and I don't have plans after this and we're like, let's go get coffee. And then we're like, let's get a drink too. And then we're vibing on mimosas and you're like, you want to go to like this dive bar? Let's go shoot some pool. And like, that's so fun.
That's
and then like
fun.
the night just takes you. So it's never really about where you are. It's always about who you're with. So like, cause no one wants to be out with someone that's not in a good mood or not a fun vibe when they're out. So it's like when you're with a group of friends and everyone's just vibing and you just make spontaneous choices. I like when things are weird. Like you end up seeing this kid that you like maybe hooked up with, or maybe it's his friend. And you're like, why did we hang out with like Joey blah 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 last night? Like that was so random, but we had so much fun. Like I love when things are just spontaneous and weird and like you don't overthink it, because when the expectations are low, there's no bad things that can happen. If nothing happens, it's like, well, you had no expectations, so you're not in a bad mood.
Exactly.
But there's only room to go up. You're like, wow, I had no expectations for this night. It turned out to be so much fun. And it makes it 10 times more fun because you didn't expect it to be.
So would you be on this unanticipated fun night? Would you be in Philly?
Yeah. So the most fun I had recently, me and my friends, we went on a 4-mile walk, totally wholesome on a Saturday. None of us had any plans. We weren't thinking about drinking. On the way back from the walk, we stopped at a bar and we were just like, let's just get a drink. And we were all just like vibing. We were like, we should day drink today. Like we could go into the city, go to a few sports bars, like have some fun, like just dance and have a good time. It was just after Thanksgiving. So it wasn't like that weird. Like I love the week after Thanksgiving, like where everyone's like either at home with their family or you're in the city. So it's like always an eclectic crew of who's actually still in the city versus most people are home with their family still. And we just all vibed. And like, I always think one of my favorite things is a post game. I love like leaving the bar and like going to some like random kid's house. He's always playing fucking music videos on his TV and just like
always the music videos.
Having fun and just like vibing out and just like, this is chill. Like I love this.
I feel like you and I are the same. I always say, low maintenance, high strung.
Yes, I like that.
People mistake me for being high maintenance. I'm not. I'm high strung. Like I have anxiety and I'm like very like energetic and like will be like the planner. But my maintenance is like nothing. Like you could literally take me anywhere and I could figure out a good time. I feel like we're similar in that way.
Very much so.
Which I love. Okay, so my last question for you is, what is something, and this is really hard for me and I never know what to say, so you might struggle with it.
Oh no.
What is something that we could not find out about you on the internet? Or if you don't have it, like people would really have to dig. Like you might have mentioned this like story or fact one time on an Instagram story or TikTok. Like people might know about it, but like what is a fact about you that we wouldn't know from the internet?
I don't drive. I have a license, but it is the most least used piece of plastic in my wallet. I have really bad driving anxiety.
Me too.
So I'm that person who like, I could drive in a suburb. Like if you want to go up the street to the mall, and I'll still be anxious doing it, but I can do that for us. The second you want me to go on the highway, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I won't have a car in the city. And honestly, this is something that in my adult years, I need to work on, like, and like improve on, because like eventually I'm going to need to drive. Like I'm going to need, if I want to have kids, I'm going to need to take them places.
Yeah.
I haven't talked about it because it's kind of an embarrassing thing for me. I'm like, Bryn, you're 26 years old. Like, go fucking drive. It's not that deep. But it's it's almost one of those things that I've made it such a big deal in my head that it's now prevented me.
Yeah.
So I haven't talked about it because I'm kind of ashamed of it. But it's weird. Like I get like relieved when I like meet other people who like have a similar thing. And I'm like, oh my God. Like when I tell people that they've been driving since 16 years old, they're like, what do you mean? You just get in the fucking car and do it. But for me, I've made it such a big thing that I like get anxious talking about it.
I'm really similar. Like, just so you know, I was not a good driver when I got my license, just like really not a good driver. And so my parents like would really discourage me from going on the highway. Like I wasn't really allowed, quote unquote. Like I could, but like I didn't. And so now even when I emerge on any highway ever, my hands sweat and I get nervous and I need to like turn the music down. I'm a very cautious driver, which ends up being a bad thing because I drive slowly, which driving slowly can end up being more dangerous than driving too fast. And I hate driving. I'm a passenger princess for life.
I'm a passenger princess.
Passenger princess for life.
I literally like, everyone's always, this sounds so bad, you guys, but everyone's always like, why wouldn't you ever consider moving to LA? And I'm like, because I can't drive and you have to drive there. And it's on a freeway with 8 lanes.
Would you ever consider to like there?
I visited last month and I did really enjoy it. Because if I was to move from Philly, everyone's like, oh, you'll move to New York. I'm like, no shade to New York. It's just, to me, it's actually pretty similar to Philly, just bigger and more costlier. I would want to make a move that's going to like shake things up, like go to a Miami or go to LA, like somewhere where the weather's totally different.
We could fuck with Austin.
Yeah, we could fuck with Austin a little bit.
We crushed Austin.
Yeah. I want to go back to Austin and experience like the actual like nightlife and like culture because we were very like on a schedule. Like the first night was really fun because we like could do whatever we wanted. But the rest of the trip we were following a pretty strict itinerary. So it was hard to like actually do stuff. So I definitely want to go back and like relive that.
So good. I agree. Well, tell everybody where they can find you.
Yes. So I am Bran_Flakes with 2 Z's on Instagram. Same thing on TikTok, just with 2 underscores. Bran_Flakes.
Oh, and then one other thing. Is there anything like coming up the pipeline that you want to like hype up? Do you have any like parties you're planning or any exciting things?
There's a lot of things coming up the pipeline that are so exciting and big that unfortunately I can't say them publicly. But just know things are in the works and they're coming.
Things are in the works. And once we finish the pod, I'm going to ask him about it. So I'll know, but you won't. Love you. Love you guys. Thanks for listening.
Bye guys.